We had always known that we wanted more than one child and that we wanted them pretty close together. And I know that there's no guarantees, but in our minds, we thought if they're close in age, then maybe they'll have more in common and be closer, because the desire of our hearts has always been that our children get be friends. Like, I know they can only get along so much, they are siblings, but especially when they're adults, to have a connection with each other and to be friends. That has always been our hope. So after our first child turned one, we knew that we were going to start to seriously think about trying to have another baby. We waited a couple months, and then we thought, okay, let's just do what we did before and stop trying to prevent pregnancy and see what happens. And sure enough, right away I got nauseous and I thought, I think I'm pregnant, but I didn't know if it was just like kind of like placebo in a sense. Like, do I want a baby so much that I'm feeling nauseous? Is it all in my mind or is it real? So I held off, and I waited until my period was supposed to be due. My husband wasn't home, but I just couldn't wait anymore. So I got a pregnancy test and I took it. Zayden was with me, took the test, and it was positive. And I was just over the moon. As soon as my husband came home, I showed him the pregnancy test. He was thrilled. We're like, oh my word, that was so easy. A couple of weeks of trying, and there you go, we're pregnant. Like, how blessed are we? We were just thrilled. I was sick right away. I even had like a little tummy bump, like no one would have noticed, but my husband could even see it through my shirts, and we were just thrilled. Any friends or family that we saw, well, I think we told family right away, but then as we saw certain friends, we would tell them that we were having a baby. We weren't going to wait. We were just so excited. We could not keep this news to ourselves. And we had, one night a get together of a bunch of friends. I can't remember why, but quite a few were over. We told them, and they were all excited for us. And they're like, oh my word, and they're like, when's the baby due? And we found out that, when you go online and you get an estimate for your due date, well, my due date would have been Zayden's birthday. Well, exactly 1 year, the due date would have been his birthday. So I thought, oh, that's kind of neat, but I didn't think that they would end up having the same birthdays just because Zayden had come so early. Anyways, that night, after everybody went home, when I went to the washroom, I saw that I had started to spot. Now, by this time, I was about a week. I had known that I was pregnant for about a week. So I was really early in my pregnancy, probably 5 or 6 weeks is the guess. And my heart just, it like stopped beating for a few seconds. It was the most horrific sight. Zayden, I had no spotting, but I had known that some of my friends had spotting with their firstborn. So I was just trying not to think the worst. And I went and saw my husband in the living room, and I told him, and he's like, okay, don't think the worst. This, from what the books say and what other people have said, this can be somewhat normal. Let's just go to bed and try not to fear that you're having a miscarriage. So I tried my best to do that. Easier said than done, but I knew that first in the morning I was going to go call my doctors, and if I couldn't get into her, I would go to the clinic. So I woke up, called my doctor's office, and by that time, the cramping had started to begin, like really heavy cramping, and with that, really heavy bleeding, and I just knew. I knew that I had miscarried, and I was just absolutely devastated. So I took Zayden with me to the doctor, and she's like, oh, well, maybe, this is just spotting. We'll do an ultrasound and we'll see. And I said, well, it's really heavy now, and I'm in a lot of pain and a lot of clots. So she set up an appointment for me to get an ultrasound done for a week from the time that I saw her. And the appointment was just basically to see if there was a heartbeat in there, because by that time I would have been 7 weeks, she guessed. and also just to make sure that if there was no heartbeat in there, that the body had, they say aborted. I don't like that word though, but that the body had cleansed everything out. So it was a really tough week. I took the whole week off work. I have to say that I was really shocked with how hard I took it emotionally and psychologically. I always thought that if you miscarried early on, that you barely knew you were pregnant anyways, and logically you do know that, okay, there was something evidently really wrong with the embryo and the baby because your body rejected it. So I knew all that intellectually, and so I never thought that it would be as hard as it was, but it killed me. I was so depressed. I didn't call one person. I ended up writing an email to everybody that we had told, and I'm like, sorry, I'm just not in the state of mind to phone anybody and to talk to them, but this is what's going on. And of course they were very concerned, and we were in their prayers and stuff. In one way, it was hindsight. What you get out of it is you get a real empathy for people who go through miscarriage at any stage. Like, I'm guessing that as you progress up in time, and if you have to actually deliver your baby through a miscarriage, that it would be harder and harder and harder. But not to ignore the people who have a miscarriage right at the beginning and be like, oh, you'll be fine. It's devastating. It's really, really tragic. And what you lost. You know that you have lost your baby. And as soon as I became pregnant, I had all these hopes and dreams of our family of 4 and all of that. What I ended up doing is, because I had already bought a pregnancy calendar, I ended up writing a letter to my baby angel, as I called them, and just letting them know how much I love them and that they would always be my second. After about a week, I did go back to work, and so that was good to get some sense of normalcy. But physically, my body was really drained. It was a lot for it to go through. And then I had my ultrasound, and you have to drink so much fluid because there's nothing there. And it has to be a like a vaginal ultrasound for them to see, which is never fun. And it was interesting because there was a little part of me that was maybe hoping that, maybe this baby was a twin and one survived, or, there was that little bit of hope still there. And so when you went there, you're just kind of waiting to see if you could see anything, and there was nothing. And so that was closure. It was so hard. That day again was so hard for me, but it was the closure I think that I needed, because I couldn't hold on to any hope that this pregnancy was there. Baby was gone for sure, 100%. During the next month, 2 of my friends had miscarriages, all second-borns, and we bonded through that because none of our other friends had experienced them and knew what it was like. We were all at different stages of our pregnancies, but we, came together and pulled through together to get it through the very, very difficult time that I think only a mom truly understands the pain of. And even though, granted these were our second babies, I was starting to think to myself afterwards, I'm like, what is it like for women who miscarry and they've never had a baby before, like they miscarry the first time they get pregnant? Like, I know what mind games it played on me. Like, what does that do to them? Because at least I know I can conceive, and I can carry. But like, even then, the doubt and fear plagued my mind. So what does that do to them? It was a thought that crossed my mind after that. It gave me a new appreciation for what some people have to go through. But yeah, in my circle of friends, it became quite the thing, unfortunately, that to miscarry their seconds.